is you start to make sense of all the things that are happening around you.
That's what I'm saying.
You no longer see it as, oh, someone is being an idiot, or oh, someone doesn't understand me. But never forget the first time seeing you open up your trunk and feeling like, I think I could literally sleep, eat, and bathe in his trunk.
And also optimistic. You know, every day is a new day, and just each challenge is what it is, and kind of rolling with the punches.
There might not be enough room for somebody in the rest of the group to be able to share a valuable opinion.
That was one thing for me, was like, hey, you know what? Just got a lot of stuff bottled up right now. Sometimes it just helps to let it out and just talk through it and then move on, because you know, a lot of your team members or other people might be going through or just struggling with some of the same things.
You already kind of said it.
Yeah.
But I definitely see you as probably a leading green. Like green is your primary color, and then blue is your secondary color. One of the, and prior to us talking about it today, I would have thought you were leading blue, because Pat, I will never forget the first time seeing, I've told this story to my family. I will never forget the first time seeing you open up your trunk and feeling like, I think I could literally sleep, eat, and bathe in his trunk. Like, it is literally spotless, organized, cleanly, like just literally perfect. And so when you think of the perfectionist trait, that's I was like, okay, Pat is definitely a blue. So I saw a lot of blue in you when I was reading this book as well. Like, one of the things, we talked about this earlier, but one of the things that's amazing about reading a book like this is you start to make sense of all the things that are happening around you.
That's what I'm saying.
You no longer see it as, oh, someone is being an idiot, or oh, someone doesn't understand me, or whatever the case might be. You just don't look at it that way anymore. And that's why it's so important to go through an exercise like this. But that's one example of where I see blue in you. I definitely see the stable, discreet, thoughtful, considerate. Oh my gosh, I don't know anybody who remembers birthdays, special occasions, and just those unique things that are unique to an individual, and you remember them all the time. Even just around like our team, like you're always finding something that somebody said a while ago and then you gift it to them for their birthday.
Right.
Let alone remember their birthday on top of that.
Right.
Like, that's something I'm trying to work on myself, is like try to remember birth. And you've inspired me in that way. Like, you've inspired me to want to remember people's birthdays more, and also pay attention to the different things that they like, that they enjoy. You're incredible at that. And it's so, like, sometimes I'm like, how does he remember that? Or how did he remember that I said that I like that thing, or I wanted that thing? Like, you've done, and you do it with everybody so effortlessly. So I would definitely say thoughtful, considerate, kind, and composed is a big one. And I think that, and I think we go through these colors too and talk about the risks as well with it. But you're super stoic, super composed under pressure. I think about it in basketball terms, right? Like, if I need somebody to go get a bucket, I'm passing Pat the ball.
Right.
Like, under pressure, you will go get the bucket. That's the way that I think of it. And there's one, going back to blue, systematic. I mean, you just talked about it, right? But like, if we're going on a vacation together, you're thinking, okay, what's everything that needs to get done so that we can get to the vacation? That's the way that I see you.
100%. Yeah, this was a fun exercise. I know you could, because you referred me to this book at first. So as soon as I got it and started reading, I was like, all right, this is crazy, because that's all I was thinking about was you and other people on the team and family. It's like, okay, well, what is this person? Or, you know, but again, it makes you question some of the things. Like, you think about yourself, like, what would I be? And then you start thinking about, you know, why other people are acting that way or behaving that way. And then it's like really those behaviors that they're part of. But yeah, for you, I would say definitely the first thing I thought of was leading yellow. Just because, again, we're having a company party or event. You're definitely going to be talking with everyone, making sure everyone's taken care of, entertaining, super sociable, communicative in that sense. And then some of the other ones that really popped were the creativity, and then also the imaginative or imagination, I guess. But yeah, those are some of the big ones. Just being with you day to day in the office, you know, seeing that come out in different projects we've worked on inside of work, outside of work, things like that. And also optimistic, just, you know, every day is a new day, and just, you know, each challenge is what it is, and kind of rolling with the punches. I would say definitely behind the yellow would be the red. Problem solver, especially, you know, in your role the last couple of years, just being on the front line, getting up there, no matter what it is, figuring out what the issues are, how we can solve it. I would tag team that with decisive, because when those situations, you got to make decisions.
Why are you laughing?
Quickly.
Are you thinking back to moments of me being red?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, and then also straightforward, you know, just being upfront with people, and with yourself, more importantly too. But yeah, those are some of the ones that I pulled out from there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Sometimes I think when I was reading this book, I was like, I'm more red than I am yellow, but I think it really just depends on what's happening. Like, they really toggle back and forth for me. I think more naturally, I feel more red. Because also there's a lot of times where I can, like, and this is probably just like it goes back to the energy units thing, but I can feel myself run out of social battery, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk to people.
Right.
I just want to focus on getting the job done.
For sure.
And like, I can feel my mind go there a ton. And I think naturally in sales, that happens often. You're talking to people all day long, to your team internally, and then externally to your clients all day long.
Yeah.
I think of it like just cups. Like, you might have a cup of red, of yellow, of green, of blue.
Yeah.
And for me, maybe I have a large red cup and then a medium yellow cup, or vice versa. And then for you, it might be you're more green, but you've also got a medium blue, or vice versa, right? And so you can only fill that cup up so much before it's out of space, out of capacity to be able to use those things. Yeah. And so that's why I think the energy unit side is a huge part of it, is like how much, and I really just think it's stress, right? Like, how much stress can that take? How much of that muscle can you use before it's fatigued?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the big takeaway here is you don't have to just fit in one thing. Just because you think that they group it a certain way doesn't mean that you're like, okay, I have to be red and a little bit of yellow, or I'm green with some blue and some yellow. Like, it can be a little bit of everything. It doesn't mean like there's no right or wrong answer. It's just understanding why you're behaving that way. Yeah. And how.
Yep, absolutely. Since we've identified 2 colors that will apply to us, I think we each speak to our own from a self-reflection. Because I think it's important for people to also understand the risks that you run into with that. So I'll talk about red and yellow a little bit, and then if you want to talk about green and blue.
Yeah.
So for me, one thing that I've noticed about, like, on the red side being strong-willed, aggressive, pushing, goal-oriented, straightforward, independent, some of the risks that I associate with a color like this and a personality like this is, number one, if you're working on a team, you might want to be aware, like, first of all, it's good. All of it is good, right? But you might want to be aware of how much of that can get in the way of somebody else being able to speak up, right? So if you're too independent, opinionated, straightforward, strong-willed, aggressive, there might not be enough room for somebody in the rest of the group to be able to share a valuable opinion. Like, they might have a very valuable opinion, be able to share a lot of context, details, and data, whatever the case might be, for that thing that you guys are driving towards as a team. If you're too aggressive and strong-willed that way, someone in the group might be too afraid to be able to speak up.
For sure.
So I think that's one thing that's really important to keep in mind from a red regard.
Yeah, no, I agree.
On the yellow side, I can speak to this for sure. I've definitely fallen into cases just as a salesperson where I bite off more than I can chew, right? When you say that you can do so much, and that's why sales is so important, right? Being able to persuade a client, or as a business owner, being able to persuade a client or a business or a prospect that you can get the job done for them, that's what sales is. That's your function. That's what you should be doing. But sometimes you want to be careful that you're not biting off more than you can chew. You're not over promising. And so I think for me, one of the big things that has really, and this is what it's all about at the end of the day is a book like this, is self-awareness. You want to understand who you are and how to add more fuel to your strengths, but at the same time, hedge against your weaknesses. How can I minimize those weaknesses so that they don't affect me as much, but also how can I lean and ride my strengths out into the abyss, right? So I think as a yellow, really thinking about not overstating what you're able to accomplish. Another piece I think as well, this one definitely, thankfully, probably because of my red side and being goal-oriented, not something that I have struggled with too much, but over socializing. It's definitely something that I've noticed on teams as well, is just sometimes yellows can be so social that they get distracted and all of a sudden it's the end of the day and they're like, whoa, like, what did I get done today?
Right.
And I probably shouldn't say I haven't run into this a ton before, because there are times where I've run into that as well, right? I think we've all had, like slower seasons or whatever it is where you're like, oh my gosh, like I just had fun today.
Right.
Right. So again, you've got to be just careful and be aware of that. And then also the other thing I would say from a personal brand perspective, being someone who I think is talkative in there, sociable, talkative. Yeah. Talkative is the first one. Being someone who's talkative, you want to slow down and think before you speak, especially considering who's in the room and who's around.
Right.
Right. Like I said, with clients and folks that you're trying to sell, it goes back to don't oversell, right? Don't say too much that is going to put you into a situation where you now have to turn around and say, I can't get that done, right? Manage expectations and tell them what you know for sure you can get done. And then let those things that you want to tell them you can do that are above and beyond, let those be surprises later, right? It's better to pleasantly surprise somebody than have to disappoint them later and tell them that you can no longer do what you said you could do. And then going back to what I was talking about with the personal brand, understanding who's in the room, right? Whether you're on a team and it's the manager or a CEO, an executive, a director, understanding that there's certain things that you probably shouldn't be saying, whether it's oversharing about your personal life.
To read the room.
Read the room, right? Not being overly opinionated on things that are being done within the organization, because chances are if you're an executive is in the room, they probably had some hand in carrying out that mission or driving whatever it is that you're frustrated with. So just being careful, thinking before you speak, and not being too talkative. Take something away from the greens and the blues. Be a little bit more composed. Be a little bit calm. Think about things before you just go talking on them. Probably the biggest things that I would say with red and yellows that you want to be careful, that you want to think about and just have that self-awareness for yourself.
Yeah, awesome. So for the greens, I think some things just personally, and obviously we talk about, if it's a really stressful time, sometimes you could be like, you can always be super even keel or just always like low key. I think sometimes, especially in a sales scenario where maybe you're on a call or in a meeting, you might want to turn that up a little bit. You ideally could be mirroring the client's energy. And if you're a little too low key or too low energy, it might not be great for you in that case, right? And for me, I find that sometimes like, on the phones and things like that, you might be having a slower day or not feeling great, you're 100 or whatever, but you want to turn that up a little bit. You want to be a little more yellow because you might just be, too low, I guess, if that makes sense.
It might come off as if like you don't care.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like if I'm a client and I have, to your point of mirroring energy, if I feel really good, I want to feel that you feel good with me, or otherwise you're bringing down my energy. And if I don't have good energy, well, then this is a perfect opportunity for you to turn your energy up a notch to bring me
out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. I think also one for there towards the bottom, conceals feelings. I find myself, thinking about that sometimes, like, okay, well, you might be a little more reserved and you have some feelings or whether it's inside the office, outside the office, whatever it might be. If you keep those bottled up for too long, it can kind of eat away at you. Or if you're really stressed out or it's busy season, sometimes it'd be nice to kind of let that out, again, be a little more yellow, a little more talkative, a little more optimistic. Everything's going to be all right. And kind of talk about things with, a peer or a family member, whatever it might be. And then for blue, we hear this one all the time, being a little too organized or too caught up in the details, especially when you're, doing various tasks. You can get so meticulous and super like methodical with that. Sometimes it's nice to get outside the box and have some fun with it because, at the end of the day, like you said earlier, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But sometimes, it can get kind of too analytical. You need too much time, like things like that. So you just want to kind of step outside the box a little bit and just, and then also, on the introverted side, they talk about that. If you're at an event or if you're meeting clients or you're doing cold outreach, cold prospecting, things like that, just from a sales perspective, you want to get out there because that's how you can make your new connections and new business. So yeah, it's nice to keep to yourself and do your own thing and stay in your own lane. But, in the world of business, especially now, you definitely want to get out there and, talk to people and just open up a little bit more. Don't want to sound too basic when I say, talk to people, but just be a little less reserved and be a little, have just more loose with it, I guess.
Yeah. What would you say, is there anything that you've personally struggled with in that regard? When you were reading the book, like, wow, yeah, like now I can see why I struggled with that.
Yeah.
Right? Now I can see why. Like one of the things for me, I would tell you is where I see my red really struggle. Like I don't even know if it says it. Does red say fast pace? Yes, speed.
Yeah,
right.
Speed.
Like there are times where I just go, like I see something and I'm going so fast that details are just like, you'll find errors and mistakes. Like to me, fast is good.
Right.
To a blue, accurate is good. There's a part in the book where it says red is like the gas, blue is like the brakes. You need both to drive.
Right.
Again, being self-aware. So like for me, that red side of me, that going very fast pace and not worrying about accuracy in the details, there has been times where it's hurt me. Right. And in a lot of cases, it's also been very good for me. Right. So what are some of the things that when you were reading this book and you look back on, you're like, wow, like I can see how being green made me struggle in a particular area or vice versa, or blue or whatever.
Yeah, that's some great points there. I think for the green, just to touch on it, would be probably the conceals feelings one, just being a little more open. And, again, if you're stressed out and you need a minute, just take that minute, go for a walk or, talk with a coworker, get your venting out and then get back to work. Right. So I think just, especially early on in your sales career, just that was one thing for me was like, hey, you know what? Just got a lot of stuff bottled up right now. Sometimes it just helps to let it out and just talk through it and then move on. Cause a lot of your team members or other people might be going through or just struggling with some of the same things. So.
Conceals feelings.
Yeah.
That's the one you're referring to?
Yeah, conceals feelings.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you needed that moment to just take a step out. I mean, obviously you and I have probably... Yeah. I wonder how many miles you and I have walked together over the course of the past 3 years.
Hundreds for sure.
If you were to go back and count them all up, I wish we had a G and Pat tracker.
All right, we're tracking them now for sure on the watch. But yeah, no, again, up until that point, it's just like you got to find, that person or, people on your team that you can do that with, or outside of work as well, either way. But I think that was the biggest from the green sector for me. And then probably for the blues, seems insecure is an interesting one. And I thought that was, I think maybe a lot of people go through it is like, hey, I didn't hit my numbers today, or I didn't hit my my goal for the week or for the month or whatever it might be. And then you start to think like, oh man, like I'm having a bad month. How's my next month going to be? I'm not having a great year. I hope next year is going to be good. You just go down that rabbit hole, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think for that one, just struggle with that from time to time. Just think like, hey, you know what? All you can do is control your outputs, and then the rest will come from there. And, again, work with your team. If you're struggling with something, get some advice on it, get some help on it, whatever it might be. But just knowing like, hey, look at the data, look at the results of, I had a great year last year. I'm off to a slower start, but I know around this time of year, here's what I need to do and things will pick back up. These clients, this prospecting, things like that.
Yeah. On that topic, the seems insecure part, something to think about if you are a blue, right? For me, as a red, I'm typically overly confident. Like, I think we can get anything done as a team.
Right.
But sometimes your team is looking around to find confidence.
Right.
And so if a blue seems insecure, then you want to be conscious of that. You want to go out of your way to show confidence and to show faith, trust in the vision, in the objective, so that you bleed that confidence onto your teammates, right? Because if you come off insecure, then that may take away some of the confidence of the people around you.
100%.
So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. Another thing I look at here as far as hedging against something that can be a potential weakness is needs time, right? So again, I go back to the gas and the brakes example, right? Like, sometimes you just need to get somewhere. You're not always going to be able to do everything correctly. So understanding that, yes, you do need time and things should be done correct, but also sometimes you just got to get to the destination, right? Like, sometimes you may just need to get your family to the vacation spot and not wait till you have all the right things that you need for that vacation, right? Maybe the sunblock didn't get there on time and you're just going to have to buy it when you get to the beach.
Right.
Like, some things are just able to be figured out later, but understanding the overall mission, the overall objective, the overall thing that defines win and defines a success in that scenario, understanding that sometimes speed is a component of that as well.
For sure. No, I think, especially again, in today's day and age, whatever industry it is, you're working with prospects and clients, they're going to want whatever your service or solution is, in a timely manner. Obviously, that could be different depending on what you're doing, but, at the end of the day, we talk about this all the time, speed to market, things like that. And it is great to have those systems, policies, and procedures in place. But if sometimes you just need to speed things up. If you need to get that quote out there within the next hour, whereas maybe you'd put it off until later in the day after you're done with your calls, whatever it might be, you have to just be able to constantly be, juggling that. So,
yeah. I want to talk about complementary combinations. So I have this long portion here highlighted, and I want to read it in a second, but I want to talk about our situation for a bit. So
yeah.
It's interesting, like, Pat and I clearly both are on two opposite sides, right? Like, I'm definitely red, yellow. Pat is definitely green, blue. That's one of the things that has been so instrumental in our relationship, what has kept us so tight and so close,
For sure.
But also what has allowed us to be so transparent with each other, direct with each other, giving each other honest feedback, pushing each other to be better, having that self-awareness and understanding that we have different personalities.
Right.
Because I think I always go back to walking in on my sales floor, on the sales floor, my first day in the organization that we're in now. And I was like, that guy knows what he's doing. And it was you. And I was like, I'm going to go sit by that guy and I'm going to pay attention to what he's doing and I'm going to figure that out. And that's exactly how our relationship started. But we were two entirely different personalities, and we clicked right away and respected each other's vehicles right away.
Yeah.
Right. Like, again, I go back to the race, right? An obstacle course. We might be using different vehicles, but we're still both going to get to the finish line. And so being able to use each other, the reason why I'm sharing all this is to say, go find somebody that complements your strengths and complements your weaknesses, because that way you guys can work with each other to give each other different perspectives, to give each other different feedback, to give each other honest feedback, and at the same time still be focused on success, right? That agenda, that success is the agenda, right? So being able to focus on that and understand that you have different strengths and weaknesses that can complement each other is so big.
100%. And to your point earlier, I mean, if we all had blue, if we're all blues, then, everything would take a long time. We wouldn't hit any deadlines, right? if we were all reds, then, we would miss some of those small details when we're submitting that bid, or, we would miss an order and it could be potentially lead to a credit or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's why you need a little bit of everything on the team. Whether it's a two-person team or, 2,000-person team, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't
For those
matter.
that don't know, a credit is meaning a mistake that happens on something.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to stay
in our
credits.
sale, you want to stay away from things
By all means.
that are going to be a mistake or an issue, right? And so I think all of you probably in your sale or whatever business that you're in, there's something to measure those mistakes. A credit would be that in our situation. So to Pat's point, if we were all reds, there would be a lot of mistakes that happen throughout the project, throughout the process. And so definitely something to be aware of for sure. It's a really good point.
Yeah. It's just interesting how they all, mesh and things like that. So that's why it's such a good book.
The thing that I highlighted here, so complementary combinations. So, right, so where there are things a good pair up. Both blues and reds are task oriented. Reds are certainly more interested in their result than in the process itself. And blues are more concerned with the process and tend to ignore the result, but they're at least speaking the same language. Both devote themselves to work and only spend limited time chatting about football or home improvement, except maybe at lunchtime. They would complement each other in a good way. If we liken this to a car, a red is the accelerator while a blue is the brake. Both are needed in order to drive successfully. The trick is not to push both pedals at the same time. There it is. I didn't even realize that it was in this paragraph, but I just saw. But that's the exact example that I was talking about. I don't even, because I've talked to people about this book just on a regular basis, and I forgot that line though. The trick is not to push both pedals at the same time. That's kind of funny, but it's true, right? Like for different tasks, for different missions, for different needs that everything has, you got to understand which one you need.
Yeah.
Right? In some cases, you'll need the brakes to slow down and make sure you're doing everything accurately. In some cases, you got to forget about accuracy and just go get it done fast.
Right. You can't drive that with feet on both pedals.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
just can't drive.
I think this is a great conversation.
Yeah, no, I think this is just a very eye-opening book in a good way, in a great way. I just think that it's not just business related, it's life related as well, and just interacting with different people, and it really kind of makes you take a step back and just think about a lot of interactions you've had in the past, a lot that you're having right now. And then also when you're in those moments, or if you're disagreeing with someone, or someone's acting out, or you think someone's acting different or crazy, or they're an idiot, whatever it is, now you can kind of understand why. Again, I think the biggest takeaway is there's no perfect bucket or thing that you have to be in, or that everyone has to be in. There could be a mix of 2 to 3, as almost 100% of people are. You just have to realize, like, this is what it is, and this is how you kind of navigate it, and then just work with it from there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's super important at the end of the day to be self-aware. I think for myself, one of the things that has really helped me is just being very aware of my weaknesses, and also very aware of where my strengths fall, right? So I knowing where to use what and how to use it came with time, but at least knowing what the strengths and weaknesses were, and going on a journey of finding out what those are, got me to the starting line, got me into the race. Understanding where my shortcomings are, where my strengths fall, where I can hit the accelerator, where I need to hit the brakes, and things like that. And so spend time becoming self-aware, spend time, go on that journey of finding out what your strengths are. And really for me, I think that the way to do that is just by being active, no matter what, right? Like and that's what I love about sales. I mean, sales has been just such an amazing journey for me to find out what type of person I am, where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are. And so if you are not in sales and you want to be in business, or you want to be in marketing, or any type of business role, I encourage you to go into sales. It's such an amazing journey. It's such an amazing career path that will teach you so much about yourself. And so if I used to always say that I think that it should be required for people to like work in restaurants and hospitality and
service,
and service when they're in high school. If I almost want to say now, like as a young adult, if you want to be in any form of business, you should have to do sales for a little bit because 100%. It just teaches you so much.
Yeah, in business and in life, honestly.
Yeah.
So glad to have been in the industry or in the field for last 8 years, at least 9 years. Yeah.
Been a great journey, and the journey continues. I think as someone who's in sales, you never stop selling. I mean, we're selling this book right now, Surrounded by Idiots.
Yep.
Thomas Erickson, incredible book. And again, there's many different forms out there that you can go to find some. I mean, there's the Strengths Finder test is a good one.
Yeah, we talked about that one. That's a great one.
There's the Culture Index, like I said. There's this book itself, but there's many tests out there that can give you more self-awareness outside of just having to go do things and actually go on this journey, right? So if you're looking for something that's quicker, I would say start with this book, start with Surrounded by Idiots, and then the next thing I would say is go do a couple of the quizzes, look at some of the feedback. Don't just look at the positives, but look at the shortcomings as well. I think being able to understand both really well will guide you a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I would say, towards the end of the book, there is a little quiz in chapter 20 that helps you kind of put it all together, which I think is awesome. Again, one of my favorite things about the book. But yeah, so if you kind of were overwhelmed with a lot of information or it was a lot to soak in, you can definitely take that quiz on chapter 20 and see how you did and kind of recap it for you. But Surrounded by Idiots, Thomas Erickson. Go get your copy. Let us know what you think.
And Thomas Erickson, if you somehow see one of these clips or this podcast, show us some love. We're showing you some love here.
Let's go.
All right.